goal or some topic, they'll pick up everything in the sky and they will put it all together, connect it, and bring it together. That's what, to me, this next speaker is. Of course, he's the senior editor of Swarajya. He's the governing board member of Audible. Yes, the person whose work is going to be presented. I forgot. He's definitely. Today, Aravindhan Neelakandan is unable to come for some vital reasons. So his work is going to be presented. He is the senior editor of Swarajya, the governing board member of Audible. He is the co-author of Breaking India and the author of various research books, only two of which I'm mentioning right now. Hindutva, its origin, evolution, and future, and most recently, which we have been seeing today also, a Dharmic social history of India. Our next presenter, our next person whose work is going to be presented is Aravindhan Neelakandan ji on the Samadharma impact of Rama in other traditions. Sitaram.
Om Shanta Mahanto Nivasanti Santaha Vasantavat Lokahitam Charantaha Tirna Swayam Bhima Bhavarnavam Janan Ahetuna Anyana Pitarayantaha Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Good evening to all. Aravindhan had sent his write-up without any title. So after reading through the paper, so I thought the most appropriate title for this paper is Sri Rama, Force of Liberation Against Colonialism. So though the title was given as other traditions, etc., he has written this whole paper with this theme. So I took the liberty, since I have been his friend for a very long time and I understand his mind. So I put this title. This is what it is going to be. He sent a very 3-4 pictures, and of course I added some more to make this into a presentation. So we talked about colonialism and colonization, and obviously the symbolism here is that Ravana of British colonialism. And we all know about the 10-headed Ravana. So the 10 Asuric faces of the Ravana of British colonialism. So against this Ravana is Rama, the force of liberation, is going to fight. So what are these 10 Asuric faces? So when the East India Company started out in India, first as a business enterprise, and then started winning many territories, started ruling, and then captured the whole nation. And after that, only then, these 10 Asuric faces really started showing up. So these points belong to that phase. Once the British Raj got firmly established in India, what happened? Systematic deindustrialization and economic exploitation. This we already know, how all the weavers in India lost their jobs, and how so much loot from India has been taken and all that, well known. Those who are not much familiar with the topic, because our textbooks, in spite of 10 years of rule by the pro-Hindutva nationalist government, not much of this is being taught in our history books. So, but there are many books, other books, including the one by Shashi Tharoor, Area of Darkness. It's a good book, though the author has some kind of a political affiliation, but the book is good, so we can read that. And next is the bureaucratic suppression of national economic development. So whoever was trying to start Swadeshi industry in India was brutally suppressed. Disruption and distortion of agrarian systems, because India had a very well established irrigation and agrarian systems, and the entire British administration was so much tax centric. Their only goal was not to grow the agriculture, but to collect as much tax as possible. Whether the crop goes or not, tax is to be paid. So that really killed traditional Indian agriculture, and so much was its impact that till today, the Indian agriculture is not able to recover from that setback. And even in the post-independence era, many of the government policies were kind of continuation of the British policies. And the fourth point, amplification of agrarian inequalities and creation of collaborating vested interests. So in the pre-British period, there was local governance, and there were panchayat systems, and each village was empowered, and this agrarian society had its own self-governance method. But with the British Raj, local power centers emerged, and these local power centers became chamchas of the British rule, and ultimately the common people suffered under the twin brutality of the local guy as well as the British. So that created this collaborating vested interest. Fifth, sustained food insecurity and recurrent famines. So till the pre-British period, famines used to happen in India due to natural reasons. And people had their own methods of facing that famine and coming out of it. They would migrate to some other town, and once the situation improves, they will come back, There are so many stories of migrations, and in almost all of them, we have famine as an undercurrent. But what the British did, so the British created famines are not of this kind, right? It was not natural. I mean, we all must have read in the history books. Instead of growing food grains, the British forced the farmers to grow indigo, which is used as a dyeing agent in their textile industry, right? So that created a food scarcity and food insecurity, and an artificial famine, and people didn't even know how to handle such large-scale famines. So millions of people, actually multi-millions of people are supposed to have died in the British-induced famines in 1850 to 1900 and till about 1900s starting. And in Tamil we have this Dhatu Varsha Panjam. It is like a phrase. So in 1866 it was a Dhatu Varsha, and the famine was so devastating that a lot of stories were created around it. So, sixth, intensive social stagnation with exacerbation of social hierarchies. So the Indian society already had some social hierarchy, and it was getting worse during the Mughal period. And the British colonialism worsened it still further. It made untouchability, which was already a practice, even more severe. And more deprived communities became suddenly untouchable under the British rule, who even before 100 or 200 years back were empowered communities. So we have a lot of history of this. Dr. Ambedkar's Mahar community was one such an example. They had fought wars. They were such a brave community, but suddenly became untouchable over a century, right? So the social stagnation became more. alienation of indigenous communities from natural resources. So that was the, so the moment you read this bullet, we talk of the salt tax, right? Salt was something, a natural resource to which everyone had a right, but British taxed it. So the eighth point was is erosion of indigenous educational institutions. We all know how the traditional Gurukula system and what are these Thinnai Pallikudam, as we call in Tamil, village schools. So they were operating in such a good manner that even the Britishers made records of it, and they thought that the system here was much better than what was there in their own country, right? So Gandhi remarked this as felling of the beautiful tree, and we all know how Dharampal wrote the book Beautiful Tree, inspired by that quote. Ninth, disruption of religious and cultural diversity. I mean, India had so much religious diversity without anyone disturbing it, except, of course, the alien Islamic invaders and the Islamic tyrants. But the Britishers brought in the additional thing of the Christian propaganda, proselytization, and Christian conversions that eroded the religious diversity here. Ruthless imposition of political imperialism, to such an extent that even basic human rights were curtailed. So we all have read the history of freedom struggle, where people were jailed or sometimes killed simply for chanting Vande Mataram or distributing some pamphlets, etc. So the British colonialism was this 10-headed monster like Ravana. So the Indians obviously wanted to put a fight against this Ravana, and the spirit of Rama came as a great force of liberation in this. And first one such manifestation of the Rama spirit was Ayya Vaikundar. So Ayya Vaikundar was the name of a saint. So he lived, he was born in 1809 in the Travancore region, which comprises of Kanyakumari, Thiruvananthapuram area, the southernmost part of our country. So it was ruled by a Hindu Maharaja, but who didn't oppose the British rule, unlike Tipu Sultan, right? So they were like collaborators of the British rule. So though the Maharaja was benevolent, but the Britishers were very freely carrying out Christian conversions, and there was a cruel tax collection, and many agrarian communities were getting suppressed under that rule. So Vaikundar was born in the Nadar community, and he proclaimed himself as a divine emanation of Vishnu. So his original name was Muthukutti Sami. And because he made this claim, he became Ayya Vaikundar. So Ayya is a honorific name, Arya. And Vaikunta is the name of Vishnu. So, and he challenged colonial exploitation and aggressive Christian proselytization in many ways. So the paper doesn't contain his biography, but Aravindhan, had it been Aravindhan, he would have, because he knows it by memory. So I don't know that much details about Ayya Vaikundar. So whatever I knew, I had meant. So when Vaikundar made this claim, both the higher castes in the Travancore kingdom and the Christian missionaries wanted to finish him off. Very unfortunate thing. But there were some noble voices in the court of the king. In fact, they actually built up a case that this person is a Dharma Drohi and he is a Raja Drohi because he claims himself as Vishnu and all this. And they made out a case that how will Vishnu be born in such castes like Nadar? So, but in the court, there was one sane voice, and he said, why not? Vishnu was born as fish and tortoise and Varaha. Why won't he be born in any human form? So that was a very sensible argument. So the king did not punish him with death. So perhaps there was a divine intervention in how he was saved, and then his movement spread, and it created a tradition called Ayyavali, which is still prevalent. So in Tamil Nadu, so the logo that you see with the lotus and the flame, that is their divine symbol. So in the Ayyavali temples, there is a mirror and there is a deepa. So, but it is called Tirudwarapati. It's an allusion to Dwaraka, and Shankha Chakra symbols are there. But there is no image of Vishnu inside. So, the tradition is still there. So, predominantly the people of Nadar community follow it. And the text of the tradition is Akila Thirattu, which has a rich symbolism of Itihasa and Purana. So, all Puranas are mixed up. Shiva Purana, Vishnu Purana, Ramayana, Mahabharata, because to carry his message to common people, all Puranic symbolisms were freely taken. So this talks about one white Asura who will be born in Kali Yuga. Okay? So the Ravana comes as this white Asura in two forms, Ven Nisan and Kali Nisan. Okay, Ven Nisan is white imperialism. So as per this text, he will be a white Rakshasa. See, you imagine that. Generally, the people have the imagination in the Purana that all Rakshasas are black. But here, Vaikundar wants to portray the British as the evil force. So he said that Ravana is now incarnating as a white Asura. Okay, Ven Nisan. And in twin form. So Kali Nisan is the one who creates social discrimination in the society of high and low. Okay, so that is aimed at oppressive social forces in the upper castes. Okay, Kali Nisan. And Ven Nisan is the British who with his imperialism wants to rule and suppress people. And against this, the Vaikundar's teachings will come as the force of Rama and defeat them. So this was the teaching. So perhaps this was the first use of Ramayana to specifically build up an anti-colonial discourse. And then the nearby state, Ranjana Anantayya. So he led a tribal uprising against the British authority in Andhra region. So he named his followers as Rama Dandu, which means Army of Rama in Telugu. So he sought support from the Maharaja of Jaipur. In a letter that he wrote to the Maharaja, he asks, is it good if the English be in our country and rule? We should wage a war with the English. The Russians are also troubling the English. If the assistance of men and arms are supplied to me, I will play Rama's part. See, here again, we see a tribal warrior claiming himself to be like a Rama. Next is the well-known Bhagavan Birsa Munda, whom we all know. So he led the tribal resistance against the British in Jharkhand. Great tribal hero. And there is a Amar Chitra Katha on Birsa Munda, which is very good. You can read that. See, so Birsa Bhagavan, he symbolized, you look at the years, he just lived for 25 years. So imagine at his 25th year, when he was at the age of 25, he had built up such a big rebellion that the British were terrified. And it was not very easy to catch him. He was moving around from village to village, and no villager would even give information to the British where he is. And with a lot of effort, and also with some betrayals from the tribals, British caught him, and then they publicly executed him. And when that happened, he was just 25. Then at what age he would have started the rebellion? Perhaps at the age of like 12. And he was actually put in a Christian school, and he didn't like what the Christian priests were teaching him, hostel. And then he ran away. He found a guru so who gave him a Vaishnava Diksha. So he symbolized British and their collaborators as Ravana and the British queen as Mandodari. Of course, we all know Mandodari is a noble character, but for a warrior, because there is a queen sitting in the England, so he really has to find an equivalent. Okay? And so he started the practice of burning their effigies openly. And naturally, he was a tribal warrior carrying bow and arrow. So the Ramas, he didn't say, I am Rama. But naturally, when he characterized British as Ravana, so it is obviously known who is Rama and who are Rama's armies. Right? So, and he was adorned. He was he embodied the archetype Rama Bhakta. He was adorned with the sacred thread. You know, tribal warrior, but all his statues, if you see, it has the sacred thread. And the Tulasi plant is always associated. In fact, the tribal conducts pujas of Birsa Bhagavan, and a Tulasi plant is kept nearby. So this was Birsa Munda. And Swami Vivekananda, the cyclonic Hindu monk. So he inspired generations to serve India and her downtrodden millions as Karma Yoga. He provided the spiritual blueprint for the liberation of India. And it is said in his biography that he received the Rama mantra from his guru, Sri Ramakrishna, along with many mantras, because Sri Ramakrishna was a spiritual experimenter. So he did the Shakta Tantrika sadhana, he did the Vaishnava sadhana, he did the Advaita Vedanta sadhana, everything. So as part of that, Rama mantra also was given to Swami Vivekananda, and this ignited in the young Narendra a surge of ecstatic devotion. But in his lectures, Swamiji spoken a lot about Rama. He exhorted the youth to embody the fearless and selfless dedication of Hanuman as their ideal, and he presented Sita as the embodiment of ideal womanhood. That was Swami Vivekananda. And Indian freedom struggle, when it started, it found its most potent expression in the veneration of the goddess, Shakti. Because it was natural, we always say Matrubhumi. So when people wanted to fight the British with the spirit of patriotism, the immediate connection was to the mother as Devi and Shakti. So Vande Mataram from Bankim Chandra became the war cry. It was accompanied by portraying Devi as Mahakali, Bhavani and Durga. So this was a fierce spirit of defiance. And the Bharat Mata calendar art also emerged out of this spirit. But this went on till about 1910 or so, when a lot of revolutionaries came in and the armed struggle against the British Empire, including those of Bala Gangadhar Tilak, Veer Savarkar, Vasudev Balwant, Phadke, Rash Bihari Bose, all that. Revolutionaries, Bengal revolutionaries, Maharashtra revolutionaries. But the British brutally suppressed all that armed revolution. And by the time Gandhi arrived, the fighters were demoralized a lot. So with Gandhi's arrival, a subtle and profound shift occurred. So this is what Aravindhan's study claims. So there was a transition from the fiery Shakta to the serene and pacifist Vaishnavism in the freedom struggle. So the freedom struggle was inspired by Shaktism first, and then with Gandhi's arrives, it turned more towards Vaishnavism. And again, if he says this in public, I think many people said that was a very bad thing to happen. Because there are a lot of critics of Gandhi. We should have continued with the Shakti spirit till the very end. And Gandhi came and spoiled the whole thing. Anyway, but Aravindhan portrays it in positive light. Okay? So he says, Vande Mataram harmonized itself with Vaishnava Janato, and ideal of Rama Rajya gradually emerged as a powerful emotional anchor. And it was not just Mahatma Gandhi's advocacy, but the idea of Rama Rajya arose because the Indians suffered a lot under British rule, and they naturally look forward to the concept of Ramarajya, as they were already familiar with the Ramayana. So Gandhi, I mean, a leader like Gandhi had to just come and say it. And there is a precursor to this. Even before the concept picked up in India, in Fiji Islands. So there were British, as we have been speaking, British created so much of economic exploitation in India, and they engineered famines, and Indians in huge hordes where they went as indentured laborers to South Africa, West Indies, Fiji Islands, Mauritius, Singapore, Malaysia, I mean all the islands, right? The Indian communities that we see in all these island nations, Trinidad and Tobago, everywhere, it all happened somewhere in the 1800s. And this indentured labor was a form of quasi-slavery. They had to work under dehumanizing conditions. And there are horrible accounts of Indian indentured laborers from Fiji. And there was a deeply exploitative gender ratio, which is natural. In fact, initially only the men folk migrated, but later the women folk also migrated, because there could have been multiple reasons. Obviously, because people wanted to take their families and they didn't see any hope in India. And the woman would add to the workforce and all that, right? But due to this, women were subjected to horrific abuses. Many chose the path of self-annihilation, which means suicide, rather than surrender their dignity because of this. But yet, they preserved their familial bonds and upheld their moral integrity. And what helped in this? The unwavering fortitude stemmed largely from the sustaining power of bhakti, especially the bhakti surrounding Ramayana. So, in case of Fiji, it was the recitation of Tulsidas Sri Ramcharitmanas and the enactment of Ram Leela, because predominantly the laborers were from Bihar and UP and northern India and the central India to Fiji. Of course, to Mauritius and South Africa, there were a lot of South Indians. That's where Gandhi worked. So these sacred traditions provided a vital source for spiritual nourishment. It enabled those Indian laborers to withstand the crushing weight of oppression. And so here is a long quote. I have just put it verbatim. I will also read it out for those who can't read it. So this was an observation by John D. Kelly, an anthropologist studying Indian population in Fiji under the Western framework. He doesn't know any spirituality, Ramcharitmanas, Rama, anything. He's a regular anthropologist, okay? And studying everything under Western framework. But still, he made this remark. I'll read that out. Hindus and Muslims also participated in Ram Leelas, dramatic reenactments of the Ramayana narrative, which in indentured days was told as a tale of Ram's exile, climaxing with the burning of a giant effigy of Ravan, symbolizing destruction of the evil in the world. In these rituals, the Indians found their social identity in relations to God, outside of and in tension with the colonial, racist, and economic definition of themselves as coolies. The reading and hearing of texts became a non-coercive basis for an open community. Within that framework, the Ramcharitmanas of Tulsidas rose in social prominence through salient readings of its teachings. In the example of Ram, this version of Ramayana provided a paradigm for the struggle of the good in an evil world. In the example of his wife Sita, a model of devoted chastity under pressure, and in the example of their enemy Ravan, a model of the delusions of powerful evil. All the rituals of the indenture period provided a basis for self-respect in antagonism with colonial moral measures. The Tulsidas text became more, it became a weapon against indenture itself. So this is the observation of a Western anthropologist. So one lesson here is that don't paint every Western scholar as a villain. You know, this is a tendency among many of the so-called Hindu crowd. The moment you say names like John D. Kelly, who is John D. Kelly? Why do we have to say what he has to? Come on, yeah. You have not studied how Indians lived in Fiji. He has gone and studied it, right? So whatever valid observations, so this is where Aravindhan's scholarship really comes to our aid. So he doesn't have any such notions of, Western scholar, Indian scholar, etc., etc. So he is always the seeker of truth. So wherever the solid facts and truth comes, he upholds them. And this is a very inspiring tale of Baba Ramachandra, a Ramanandi sadhu. He concealed his Brahmin identity in order to become an indentured laborer in Fiji. Why? Because he was hearing a lot of stories about suffering Indians, and it appears that he was a writer, so he wanted to really bring about their travails. And so once he got into the indenture camp, he wrote extensively on the suffering of the Indian women in Fiji, how they were sexually abused, and how even pregnant women had to work with a lot of difficulty in those labor camps. He became a Hanuman. This is Aravindhan's comment. Communicated the suffering of the Hindu woman in exile to the outside world. So, while in the Fiji, he also organized Ram Leelas and Ramcharitmanas Kathas. So that's also mentioned in the paper. So he returned from Fiji. He worked in central and northern India as a very famous trade union leader, and he worked for the rights of the workers in India also. After returning, he emphasized equality and egalitarian relation. There was lot of caste feeling in these regions. It still continues, even in states like Bihar. So he used Ramayana as a powerful symbolism to emphasize the equality and removal of casteism from the minds of the societies. Bhakti's power of deliverance. For the Fiji indentured Indians, the rules of pollution, which had become strong because of social stagnation. See, they went from their own native places with a lot of feeling of high and low, this caste. In their village, they will treat another person very low. But once they went to this labor camp, when all of them were treated in such a bad manner, so they really understood that what they were following in their villages in India was such a bad thing. And the dignity of labor and dignity of humankind, they realized. And Bhakti helped them in this process. They were in exile, just like Rama, who was exiled to forest. They were denied freedom, just like Sita, how she was in Ashokavana. So they could identify with these characters. They felt they are as pure as Sita. Even though the British are torturing them and oppressing them and abusing them, they felt they are as pure as Sita, and the British and their henchmen were nothing but Ravana and his mighty forces, and Ram will come and deliver them from all this oppression. They believed that deliverance would come through bhakti. It held them together. So finally, the colonial shackles did break down and the freedom did come. And Jallianwala Bagh has a Rama connection. So in the 1990, this is how the sequence of events started. So that year, Ram Navami came on April 9th. So in the city of Amritsar, people were celebrating Ram Navami. The Ram Navami is celebrated for 10 days. So as part of that, on April 13th, the day was celebrated together by Hindus, Sikhs, and also Muslims who joined the Ram Navami celebration, which also became a movement for freedom struggle. Because both were going on, there was the influence of, and then in between that Ram Navami celebration itself, the Jallianwala Bagh massacre happened. Okay? So this was followed by attacks of the police and arrest of the national leaders. So that's how the Jallianwala Bagh meeting actually happened. It was part of a Ram Navami celebration in Amritsar. So Rama inspiration in Gandhi's Satyagraha. So Gandhi made the vision of Ramarajya and singing of Ram Bhajan as a part of all his Satyagraha activities. So there was this symbolism. Mother India under British became Sita in Ashokavana. Every Satyagrahi became the soldier of Ramasena. Mahatma Gandhi was the great Hanuman, who was the leader of this Sena. So this symbolism gained ground in the Congress circles. So Gandhi did not pressurize his Muslim followers to join in the Ramanama recitation. But he pointed out that they should not have any real objection to taking Ramanama because it is the name of the divine oneness. So whoever was willing to chant Ramanama, Muslims, they were welcome. So this is what Gandhi said. And we don't have any statistics on this, but among Gandhi's followers, at least some sincere Muslims would definitely have chanted Ramanama, whoever was staying in his ashram and everything. So Gandhi said famously, "My Rama is the impersonal, all-pervading truth," which means that he is like the Nirguna Rama. So this is what a lot of leftist historians point out, that the Rama of Gandhi is not the Rama of the Ramayana. So this is also said about Kabir. That Rama is like a different animal. Okay, that is like he is a Nirguna, Nirakara, whatever, formless. But he has a name which is Rama, strangely. So, but Gandhi also has recorded elsewhere, he is the impersonal pervading truth, but he is also the Rama of Ramcharitamanas of Tulsidas. That's what Gandhi said. He said both. He didn't say only one thing, but they filter out what Gandhi said second, and largely propagate only the first. So this is the last slide. Rama Bhakti is Rashtra Bhakti. And the image there, so this image is a puja from our home. So I just put it. I thought it's an appropriate slide. Sri Rama is the enduring living Shakti of the Indian nation. The primal archetype for every son, every husband, every ruler. All this and more, that is the Shakti of Rama. As the source of the universe, he is truth and liberty, justice and universal empathy. He is the very personification of Dharma. Ramo Vigrahavan Dharmaha. Naturally, Rama Bhakti is the undying spirit of Mother India. So this is how this paper concludes.